Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's live trading session and live trade review. I'm not going to take any trades today because or any trades during this session because as I've mentioned to you already, I'm travelling in about the next 20 minutes or so. So this session will be a bit shorter than usual. We'll obviously look at the markets. I want to look at the trades, talk about some of the activity that we've seen today, which has been quite dramatic, to say the least. And I have two trades on, so I'm long DAX and Dow as we approach the bell. About 9 minutes or so to go to the trading bell at the moment. So the Dow is trading at 35,040. The DAX is trading at 15,425. So I'm just going to minimise this screen. Hopefully you still see, or you should still see the trading screens there, and I'll bring up the Dow in a few minutes. If you do have questions, please get those through to me quickly so that I do have the opportunity to reply to them before I leave. The weather is slightly or quite inclement in Galway today, so if for some reason the feed or the stream doesn't seem to be as good as it should be, unfortunately that's the reason. There is some fairly dramatic weather around, which I don't like saying when I'm flying this afternoon, but that's another story. So the markets are reasonably quiet at the moment. We're not seeing any great movement in either direction, but that doesn't really tell the story of the day. So if we bring the Dow up, this is a 1 hour chart, so I'm just going to take this right down to 5 minutes, which will take us or show us the majority of the move, or all of the move that we've seen since yesterday. I think at the start of the trading day yesterday we were even higher. I think we pushed up to about 910, 920, possibly even slightly above that. But we've seen a fairly dramatic sell-off in line with what went on in Asia earlier this morning, and has continued throughout the European trading day, and there have been a number of occasions that we've seen fairly significant drops, rallies, etc., etc. And you know, had you got the range right in this particular period from about 9 o'clock this morning, would have been a very profitable day selling around these levels and buying back on those dips. Now the range has narrowed out, as you can see on the right hand side of the screen. A little bit more normality as we approach the open. I think if we even just go back to Monday or Tuesday, I'm not sure which of the 2 days it was, but there is the potential for the European markets, or that European trading period, to overshoot the actual opening, and that's what I'm looking for today. I wrote just a few minutes ago, maybe 5 or 10 minutes ago, that I thought the Dow would hold 35,000. I still continue with that belief. I know that we're at 35,050, so that's not a difficult assertion to make. But I do think that we will hold 35,000. I think it will continue to try and hold those levels. Obviously, the story that's creating all of this uncertainty, we've always had inflation, COVID stories. We've had lockdown all week in various different countries, stories about potentially making the vaccinations mandatory. But the news that's really spooked the market over the last 24 hours or so has been this new strain of COVID emanating out of Africa, principally South Africa, I believe, although I could be wrong there, and that has significantly unnerved the markets. We saw the Asian markets off significantly earlier. The Nikkei 225, apologies, sorry, I was trying to think of the name of the Japanese index. I don't know how that escaped me. But the Nikkei 225 was probably the worst performing of the indices during the evening session. So just in relation to the trading that we've seen today, there's a few things that I wanted to talk about in relation to that. Just in in terms of the entry points today, the first entry that I made into the Dow was at 35,199. When you get a little bit of fear in the markets, it goes an awful long way. And unfortunately, we've seen that again today. And as much as I was holding before I entered the market, I think as soon as I entered that market, we sold off 100 points. We've rallied back there a few times in the early part of this morning's session, but we haven't really been back to those levels. So what I'm looking for as the opening bell is about 4.5 minutes or so away, is for an overshoot in terms of what we've seen during the European trading session, and a rally from the open in New York. Obviously a rally from significantly lower levels. I think as the Americans would have finished out the eve of Thanksgiving, we were probably trading somewhere between 35,820 and 35,850. So we're going to be opening up about 850 points lower. And it really is just a story about whether buyers will emerge, which I do think that they will, and equally so whether that fear becomes more contagious, gathers momentum, and we see a push even lower. But as I've mentioned already, my anticipation is certainly that we'll hold on to the 35,000 level. So just in relation to what I was attempting to say there, when you have a market like this, trying to pick your entry points is fraught with danger. And the second thing, I suppose, is that on the back of this being the day following Thanksgiving, there are going to be less people at their desks, there's going to be less liquidity, there's going to be less volume going through this market. So if the fear does start to build and we start to see a bit of momentum, it could be very difficult to see the market slowing down, breaking and moving back to the upside. Where that potentially will happen, probably more dramatically than at any other time, will be that opening bell. But it's going to be interesting to see where we open and then how the mood starts to accelerate or move from that particular point. So 2 trades open, long DAX, long Dow. I will be monitoring them during the course of the afternoon with the intention of closing them both, potentially stopping out both, although the Dow will be the one that I'll be looking to stop out probably quicker than the DAX trade. So I was going to quickly go over the week's trades. I'll do that in a few minutes. We'll just get to the opening bell and see where we go. So I'll just bring the Dow back up here. We've got about 90 seconds or so to go. Just in relation to the other things this morning, I obviously carried over a gold trade, closed that out at 1803. I think the trade had been with me since Monday, far longer than I would have anticipated. There were better levels. Gold traded up to about 1811, 1812 earlier, but I was happy to take a loss. I've been shouldering or carrying that trade for far too long at this stage. And then the euro trades that I've been accumulating over the last number of days, gave those away far too cheaply. The market, or the euro, has traded up close to 113 during the course of the day and is still up around the 112.90 level. So didn't really have the courage of my conviction. So we're just accelerating there towards the close. 30 seconds, 40 seconds or so to go. Market is trying to find its level. And it's difficult to find your level when you've had such a big sell-off and you don't know what trades are going to follow through immediately after the bell. Are we going to see some buyers coming into this market, which looks like there are some buyers at the moment, nothing particularly spectacular. Back up there at 35,050, and the market is set to open, and we are open there, and the trades are starting to filter through. Just holding above 35,000. We've seen 35,015, I think, of a low. and just really looking to see what orders start to come through from now, but pushing back towards that 35,000 level. As I speak, just going to open up the broader markets. The DAX is holding around 15,435 as well. The Dow is hovering around that 35,000 line. Gold has pulled off to 1803, and the euro hovering around 112.85. So it hasn't quite hit that 113 level. So we are seeing the Dow stabilising somewhat around 35,000 as I don't have anything scientific to offer you other than my gut feeling that we would hold or attempt to hold this 35,000 level, and I think it will be crucial as we go through the remainder of the day. Just dipping slightly below, but nothing of any great note at this particular point. The DAX is holding up still around 15,435, only about 10 pips against me at the moment, that particular trade. So look, I'll continue to monitor those. Have a quick look at the results as we step away from this, as I know I've only got 3 or 4 minutes left to go. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. The weather seems to be getting a bit worse. But if we open up the trades for the week, and it was, I'm going to have had a nicely positive week, 528 pips at the moment with the 2 trades open. The Dow is about 200 pips against me at the moment, so I'll make sure that I put a stop in on that reasonably quickly. So it could be anywhere between 200 and 600 points of a return. But it was a fairly difficult path in terms of getting there. I think I gave away a lot of trades cheaply, stopped out fairly aggressively on gold once during the week, and again on the DAX as markets have moved around. Haven't actually been that many stops when you total them, although I was carrying trades longer than I normally would overnight and during the course of the week, and we've seen one DAX stop at 240 pips, a gold stop at 320, another gold one, the one I was carrying this morning, at 124 pips. So a large number of positive trades again, which is my personal aim each week. Not catching too much of a move. Most of the trades are in the 20 to 30 pip range, 1 or 2 slightly above that, but not really catching a move, which has been another of the themes in recent weeks. So I'll just go back to the markets as they're trading back at 35,040. I do think we will see a rally back up towards the 35,200 level, potentially even higher if we see new buying coming into this market. It will be quite easy to push it back up to levels that we saw much earlier this morning. The DAX is very, very quiet. We've probably seen a 100-point range on the DAX since it opened, down to 34,980, back now to where it is at 35,100, just gone above 35,100 there very, very briefly. The DAX in comparison has probably had no more than a 10 pip movement on it. So I'll continue to monitor these trades during the course of the afternoon. Gold has fallen off now to 1801 and change. And I'll get back to you with any trades. I won't take any new trades, it will just be closing trades now. And it may well be that I look to close this DAX trade fairly quickly and then just focus on the Dow trade for the remainder of the day. Thank you very much for joining me. Whilst it was an erratic week trading at times, it again has been successful, which I suppose is always the ultimate ambition. Hopefully that will continue during the remainder of today. The Dow up to 35,125 as I leave you here. So we're pushing back up to those levels of that initial Dow trade that I entered first thing this morning. So I'll start to make a decision in relation to that, and I think as I close this session, I will close the DAX trade quite quickly. Thank you very much for joining me.